I totally get it. Songwriting can be frustrating. You keep hitting chords and keep hitting notes that sound wrong and you don't really know why they sound wrong, and writing music seems to take forever. But also you don't really want to learn all the music theory that you think you need to know in order to make this easier, so you're sort of caught in a rut. So this video is meant to split right down the middle and actually teach you how to write a song in the key of G major, all the different things that you need to know specifically for G major in songwriting. So let's dive in. All right, the first thing to know is that G major, like every single major key, has a total of 7 notes in it. Starting with G, you have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Not F natural, F sharp. That is your one sharp that you have in the key of G major. So when people say the key of 1 sharp, which some people do say that, what they mean is G major. So why do those notes matter? Well, those are the notes that you want to use specifically in your melody, and also any chords you have should utilize only those notes. Generally, yes, you can have non-chord tones and tones outside of the key, but we're not there yet. Right now, we're just trying to write a basic song in the key of G major. So when you're writing your melody, make sure you are using G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp when writing your melody. So the next thing to know is that every single note that we just said actually is assigned a number as well. And it's really very simple. All you do is you start with the first note, which in G major is going to be a G, and you give that the number 1. And then the next note, which would be A, you give the number 2. And then, of course, you can probably guess the rest, but yes, B is going to be a 3. I know you know how to count, and I know you know your alphabet. That's really all there is to it. Why are these numbers important? Well, because these numbers correspond with the chords that we have in the key. Now, you may or may not care about this, but this is always annotated with Roman numerals. So if you've ever seen Roman numerals to denote chords before, or just Roman numerals in music and thought, what the heck is that? That is what we're talking about here, because in every single major key, your 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chord are going to be major. So if we go back to G major, our 1 chord is going to be based around our 1, which is G. Therefore, we know we have the chord G major to work with. But then we also have a major 4 and major 5. So all we have to do is count up to the 4th and 5th note and build chords off of that. So we have G is our 1, and then we have A, B, C is our 4. So we have a C major chord. And then D is our 5. So we have a D major chord as well. Then every single major key also has 3 main minor chords. And those minor chords are always going to be the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. So in the context of G major, our 1 chord, of course, was G. So 2 is going to be A. So we have an A minor chord, and then 3 would be B. So we have a B minor chord as well. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have the E minor chord, which is our minor 6 chord. Lastly, you may have noticed that we haven't built anything off of that last note yet, because we've had 3 major, 3 minor, but there were 7 total notes, right? So what's that last one? That last one is off of the F sharp, which is our 7, and the 7 chord in every single major key is a diminished chord, which the short version of this is just don't use it. It's not really useful. Diminished chords suck. Almost everybody agrees on that. Specifically, especially, you're probably not writing classical music or something. So for your average songwriter, don't use a 7 chord, stick with major and minor. So we have the main chords, the main triads that we have, major and minor chords in the key of G major, but what do we do with that information? Well, the first thing you should know is that generally the most foundational chords to a major key are your 3 major chords. So your G major and your C major and your D major are likely going to be foundational to the song that you write. You're almost definitely going to use the G major because that's the 1 chord and the most important chord in any key. And then you're probably also going to make a lot of use of that 4 and 5 chord, which again is C major and D major in the context of G major. And then for what it's worth, the most common minor chord that is very often used in songs is going to be that minor 6 chord. So very often you will have an E minor chord in the context of G major. So just for example, that Axis of Awesome song that makes fun of how every single pop song has the same chord progression, which of course not every single one does, but a lot of them use the same chord progression. That chord progression they're making fun of is actually the 1-5-6-4, which from what we just learned, we know that the 1, the 5, and the 4 that I just said are all major, and the 6 is the 1 minor chord in that progression. So major 1, major 5, minor 6, major 4 is that chord progression. But just because the minor 6 is the most common does not mean we shouldn't show love to the 2 and the 3 chord. In fact, the 3 chord is arguably my favorite chord personally of all of them, because I really love the sound of going from that minor 3 chord up to a major 4 chord. It sounds really great, especially if you start from like a minor 6 and then you go down to a minor 3 and go up to a major 4. Try it out. It sounds really awesome in my opinion. Hopefully you like it too. But regardless, probably the second most common of the minor chords is admittedly that minor 2 chord. So very often you'll see songs that are in the key of G major use that A minor, but admittedly that minor 3 chord, which is a B minor chord in the context of G major, because that's what we're talking about in this video, is much more rare, but it's super awesome. You should totally use it. So you may have noticed that I actually slipped into that video pretty consistently, sort of general rules that apply to all major keys. And really what those are is a little preview of what music theory can offer you as a songwriter. Because once you understand some of these basic music theory rules, like for example, that every single major key has a major 1, major 4, major 5 chord, and their minor chords are going to be the 2, 3, and 6, that ends up applying to literally every major key. Once you understand those things, it makes it so you can write songs in all different keys and be really competent at it and understand what chords you have access to, what notes you have access to, how they're going to sound, how to use them. And that's what music theory can offer you. So yes, this video was all about making sure that, hey, if you aren't interested in music theory, that's cool. You can still write a song right now, hopefully in the key of G major, just from what we talked about with the chords you can use and also the notes that you have access to. But if you want to go one step deeper and you actually want to be able to do this not just with G major, but with all the different keys, be sure to grab my free guide on the 4 pillars of music theory that I believe every single songwriter really needs to know. Those 4 pillars are intervals, which is sort of at the foundational level for the rest of the music theory concepts. And then we talk about keys, which we just talked about G major specifically, but we talk about all the different keys and learning the foundational concepts so that once you learn one thing, you can sort of know for all the keys what, for example, chords you have, which chords is the 3rd thing we talk about in that guide. And then we also talk about chord progressions, which we touched on a little bit here, but we really go deeper on that as well in there, so that you sort of understand the relationship between different chords and how they will sound, how to use them, how to think through chord progressions. So if you're interested, be sure to check it out. Link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. Now go write a song in the key of G major.